Hi, everybody. My name is Nanika Edwards. I'm a poet, author, educator. I wear many different hats, and I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I'm continuing with my series on critical thinking and the story of David and Goliath. Now, this is just an introductory set of lessons to critical thinking, about critical thinking. It's not designed to be exhaustive in scope, but I hope that you're getting more and more of more and more of a comprehensive idea of just how robust our thinking is supposed to be. Now, in this video 7, I'm going to be talking about what would help someone become a critical thinker. Some of the things that would help anybody become a better critical thinker. So in this video, I'm going to share what I think would help anybody become a sharper, more profound, more rigorous critical thinker. And please forgive me, I know there's a lot of background noise. The birds are singing, dog is barking. Um, dog is barking, probably, looking to help me with my presentation. My fridge is making noise. I mean, I'm really contending with a lot of things here, but hopefully, nothing's going to be so distracting that you won't be able to focus on the lesson at hand. So, what would help someone become a critical thinker or a better critical thinker? One, we need to be willing to be wrong. We need to be willing to be wrong, okay? If we think we're right about everything, or if we're a know it all, we won't have room to learn anything more from the endless, boundless, never ending ocean of knowledge out there. Nobody knows everything except God. So please be willing to be wrong. That's what life is about. As we grow, we develop, we learn, we adjust, we learn, we evolve, and we just become a better version of ourselves if we're willing to be wrong. I'm not saying you have to do that as a rule and always be willing to be wrong, because obviously you have to be right about something, or else you're not a good critical thinker. or else you're not a good critical thinker, right? So of course it's important to be right about a lot of things, and the better you develop as a critical thinker, the more you're going to find that to be the case. But we also have to be humble enough, avoid the arrogance of Goliath, and be willing to be wrong. We also have to test assumptions to become better critical thinkers. We learned that in the last video. We also need to be introspective. Introspection is an important facet of critical thinking, and it's connected to emotional intelligence. Now, the thing is, most people tend not to be introspective. What do I mean by introspection? Introspection means we examine our thoughts, we think about what we think, we even question what we think. We put our own selves under the microscope, right? Internally, our innermost thoughts. Most people don't do that. Why? I think there might be two main reasons. There may be others, but I think one is because sometimes we're afraid to face ourselves and our monsters. And also, sometimes we may just be too lazy. We just don't feel like doing it. And so we don't do it. And we don't realize that we really undercut ourselves when we do that. So, introspection is really important. And there's no way we can really know ourselves unless we are introspective. And when we get to know ourselves, then we can better question our assumptions, recognize our assumptions or presumptions, and things like that. So, introspection is important. Tech literacy is important. A lot of information, we're bombarded with a lot of information, especially if we're constantly connected to social media and the internet and technology and so on. So, tech literacy is very important. Walking with the wise is important. Who we keep company with, our friends, the people we spend the most time with, will determine the degree to which we develop critical thinking. If we walk with fools, we will think like fools. If we walk with the wise, we will think more and more like the wise. So it's important to walk with the wise. It's important to keep company with people who challenge you to um, to 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 think wisely, right? So critical thinking, at the end of the day, is about wisdom, and wisdom is the highest form or the highest level of critical thinking. To become a better critical thinker, or to become a critical thinker at all, it's important to read. Reading a lot. Okay, that's a newspaper person. Did you hear that? Reading a lot is important. So if we don't read, we have no basis upon which to build our opinions. We would just have, I've seen people do this, they just grab opinions out of thin air because they don't read. You can't do that. That doesn't make sense. And by the way, you know what emphatically proves this point? The Bible itself. Do you see how big the Bible is, how thick it is, how much content is packed into that book? One of the points God is making by doing that is, people, you need to read. You want to build that beautiful mind, that magnificent machine of a brain that I have given you. You need to read. You need to feed it with information, and the best way to do that is by reading, even over and above watching videos and so on. There's something about reading that does something, I think, really organic for the brain, in a good way, in a constructive way. So if you want to become a sharp critical thinker, it's important to read. And there are all kinds of ways to approach that. For example, if you don't really like reading, there are different things that you can do to make reading enjoyable. For example, one of the things I love to do, because I don't always love reading, believe it or not, but I do a lot of reading because I sometimes have research to do for my book projects and things like that. But to say I'll just pick up a book and start reading, especially if it's a real heavy, deep kind of read, that's not something I would typically do. But what I do is read a lot of kids' books. And you may think, kids' books? Critical thinking? Yes, because kids' books tend to be creative, imaginative. They are they have a kind of innocence to them, a love for truth, and a lot of things within them that actually make kids wonderful critical thinkers, sometimes better critical thinkers than adults. So I love reading a lot of kids books. For example, I love Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss is for kids, but a lot of important life lessons are embedded within his stories and his poems and so on. So I love reading kids books. But apart from that, I also read educational books for kids, so not just like Dr. Seuss, but like educational books about history, and especially history, I think history, and history especially, because I love history. But sometimes it could be, like, for example, Aesop's Fables. I definitely recommend Aesop's Fables. Kind of typically for kids, but it has so much wisdom embedded within it. So you just have to read a lot and make sure that you read quality content. Like, don't read a lot of frivolous stuff. It's not going to help you build critical thinking. I don't want you to say, but Nika, you told me to read. And then you're reading a set of dotishness, right? A set of nonsense. No, you have to be very selective about what you read. And of course, reading the news, keeping up with the news, but reading the news from diverse sources, is important as well. To be honest, that's something I need to work on. I tend to read the news from the same sources all the time, and I think I need to mix it up. So that's something I would like to do. To become a better critical thinker, we all also need to be honest and love the truth. Very much like kids. Like, kids love the truth. That's why they ask so many questions, to get to the bottom of things. So honesty is important. To become a better critical thinker, we need to be curious. We need to, yeah, be curious like kids. That's why kids ask a lot of questions, because they're curious. They love the truth and they're curious. And you combine curiosity with a love for the truth, and you're going to find yourself generating a lot of really good questions. What else would help someone become a critical thinker? Considering all angles. It's important to consider things from different angles. Consider things even from angles that you may not agree with necessarily. That's important, whether it's religious or whatever it may be. Religious, cultural, educational, political, whatever it is, it's important to consider things from many different angles. And also, connected to that, if you're having a discussion with somebody who does not see things the way you do, which is one way to consider things from another angle. Actually, have a conversation with somebody who thinks differently from you. It's important to know that disagreement is not the same as hatred. If somebody disagrees with you, it does not mean that they hate you. It just means that they have a different opinion. We are not clones of each other. We are not identical robots. So we will all differ at different points in how we see things, and that's okay. What you want to do is just have a friendly conversation with people. Don't take things personally if people disagree with you. See it as an experience of exploration, of broadening your view of things, so that the more you meet different people, the more you'll be able to understand where they're coming from. So it's really important to have constructive debates and constructive conversations, not these, what I guess what you would call zero sum discussions or conversations, debates, whatever you want to call them. You don't want those zero sum conversations where one person is determined to plant a flag pole called I am right about everything, right? Those are not constructive conversations. It's important to, be polite, let people finish their thoughts, be respectful, show that you understand where somebody's coming from, even if you may not agree with them. If you think they're not making sense, say that respectfully, but listen. It's important to listen, and it's important to just be friendly or at least civil. Definitely not hostile and badgering and domineering and pushy and shovey, and those do not lead to constructive conversations. And that's why social media is so toxic. People don't know how to have these conversations anymore. It's kind of ridiculous. People assume if you disagree with them that you hate them. That's not good critical thinking. Those are two different words. Disagree is different from hate. Disagree simply means I have a different opinion. Hate means I hate you. I do not wish you well. And disagree, if I disagree with you, it doesn't mean I don't wish you well. It just means I don't necessarily agree with what you're saying. That's all. So, have constructive conversations with people who think differently from you, so that you can consider things from many different angles. It just makes you a more educated and more sophisticated person. What would help someone become a critical thinker? Pick up a hobby, especially a creative one, an artistic one. Doesn't have to be artistic, but I think artistic hobbies kind of maybe the quickest path to developing creativity, right? Which is why I would say pick up a creative hobby, right? A creative thing, something creative, like something artistic, I would say, like painting, drawing, sculpting, dancing, something creative, graphic arts, something artistic, and something artistic would, I think, be the fastest route to rekindling that creative spark that we were all born with. We are all creative, made in the image of God, who is creative, who is our creator, who we know is creative when we look at this whole universe, this planet all by itself, and then you look beyond this planet to the galaxies and the other planets and the solar systems and blah blah blah. We can see that our God is a creative God. We can see that God is a creative God. So rekindle your creativity. It will help you to build one of the pillars of critical thinking. To become a good critical thinker, you're hearing the dog barking. To become a good critical thinker, he's saying, woof, woof, I want to be a good critical thinker. Anyway, to help someone become a critical thinker, um, what would help someone become a critical thinker is managing our emotions. We've spoken a lot about that during the series, over the course of the series. And finally, what would help someone become a critical thinker is applying knowledge. Knowledge that stays in our head will only puff it up. But knowledge that is applied will transform into wisdom. The value of that currency will, I don't know, what's the opposite of inflation? I don't know what the opposite of inflation is, but the value of the currency will go up, not down. Once you apply the currency of knowledge, by actually walking in what you've learned and applying it, practicing it consistently, the value will increase from knowledge to wisdom. It'll go up from knowledge to wisdom, and wisdom is way, way, way higher than knowledge. So let me go through these again. What would help someone become a critical thinker or a better critical thinker? Be willing to be wrong, test assumptions, be introspective, develop your tech literacy, walk with the wise, read a lot, be honest, be truthful, be curious, consider all angles to any particular thing. Have constructive conversations with people who may think differently from you. Have constructive, respectful conversations with somebody who may think differently from you. Pick up a creative hobby, especially if it's an artistic one, and manage your emotions, develop emotional intelligence, and apply the knowledge that you learn when you gather info, when you read, and so on. Don't just build a library in your head that doesn't become an epistle in your life, that you don't be, you have to become an epistle, a letter that speaks to people. Your life has to speak to people. How you live should tell people about the information that you've been gathering, the knowledge that you acquire, the valuable knowledge that you acquire, especially when it's applicable, should make of you a walking, talking book in a sense. But not necessarily because people talk to you and you expound and you expatiate and all of these things, but because from looking at your life, and people are very observant, they do observe us, from looking at your life, how you carry yourself, how you speak, and so on, they can read you like a book almost and say, you know what? She's an epic book, or he's an epic book, right? Because they can see not just your knowledge, but your wisdom. Wisdom is different. Wisdom is about character. Wisdom is about fruit, the fruit that we produce character wise. So, if you want to become a better critical thinker, apply knowledge so that you can convert it into wisdom. So, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to continue getting content like this, I would encourage you to subscribe. Until next time, there is more to thinking than most people think. And yes, that is a pun. Coming out of my study of, my very intense and in depth study of the story of David and Goliath, I have produced a book called David and Goliath 360-degree Poetry. It's available on Amazon, and it's somewhat similar to my other book, David and Bathsheba 360-degree Poetry, except that for David and Goliath 360-degree Poetry, the poems are much shorter. It's a neater project in the sense that it's smaller, it's more compact, it's more concise. They're both great books. But if you would like to, have a bit of support, or a bit of extra content to help you think through the different perspectives from which you can analyze this encounter, if I could put it like that, um, a, a few different angles from which you can analyze the ins and outs of what went down between David and Goliath, then I would definitely recommend this book. I will leave the link below the video.